Hey you guys, so in this video I'm going to show you 4 awesome exercises to alleviate low back pain. So hint, you don't have a bad back. I've done another video on bad joints. If you haven't actually had an acute injury or a surgery to your back or to any joint for that matter, you don't actually have a bad back. We just need to work on specific loosening and tightening of different muscles to alleviate the stress of the tendons pulling on your back, okay? If you have chronic back pain, this will be a great solution for you, okay? So the first one we're gonna do, you're gonna need an object that's at least 1 foot, probably a little bit higher than that off of the ground. The edge of this chair or couch works great, okay? You're gonna lay on your back and you wanna dig your heels right into the edge of that chair. So we've done this sometimes before with an elevated glute bridge, okay? We've talked about that before. We're not gonna quite do that movement today, though that does help. We're gonna add on to that. So what I want you to make sure you do is actually let this angle become more obtuse. You don't want 90 degrees and you don't want a tighter angle than that. We wanna focus on hamstrings. So we're gonna scoot back a little bit more than normal, okay? So now you can see the angle is more obtuse. I'm curling my toes back and I'm digging my heels into the bench so that I can raise my hips off the floor, okay? From here, you're gonna raise it just enough that you can put your hands underneath your butt and it's not touching the floor, okay? And I wanna actually tilt my pelvis back a little. So you see how I can arch my back here? I want to actually tuck my pelvis a little bit in as I do that, okay? So that's what we call posterior pelvic tilt. From there, I wanna tighten my abs as much as possible. Exhale, suck in like you're getting punched into the stomach. Now from here, try not to pull your neck, okay? I want you to just cross your arms here or leave your arms here. I want you to try to lift your shoulder blades off the ground, okay? Just that little motion right there, okay? My butt is off the floor, I'm tightening my abs, and I'm coming up off the floor like this. What that's gonna do is it's gonna strengthen your abdominal muscles, your obliques, and your transversus abdominis. That is gonna tighten and support your low back. It's also, the posterior pelvic tilt is going to decompress the lumbar vertebrae by tilting the pelvis and releasing some of that tension on the low back. And then strengthening the hamstrings will also contribute to that. So that is the first one, okay? We call that a glute bridge. It's an elevated glute bridge with an isometric crunch. There's probably another name for it, but that's basically how I remember it, okay? That's number 1. Number 2 is one of our favorites that we always do, the 90-90 stretch, okay? So with that, you want to create a 90-degree bend in both knees, approximately, okay? And this little tip right here, I scoop my hip out to the side. That's a very important tip. Scoop the hip out to the side, all right? And then from here, I'm gonna line my spine up as best I can with my femur bone facing forward. You can also do this from different angles, so I'll demonstrate a couple angles. And it's important that you pivot from the hip and don't round at the low back and crunch, okay? So what you want to do here is tip from the hip, keep your chest and chin up, and tip forward like this. This, though it's going to be great for hip mobility, the muscles that we're stretching right now are called the deep hip rotators. They are what do this to your leg. They rotate the leg like that, okay? Those muscles attach to the sacrum, or the lowest part of your spine, okay? So when they're excessively tight, it can pinch the sciatic nerve, or it can just send tension up the low back muscles and the vertebrae, okay? So again, chest up, chin up, tip forward from the hips, right there. I'll show you a different angle. And this is actually, you know, we're gonna add in an extra exercise here. This is a great drill in and of itself. Switching from this 90-90 to this 90-90. That movement right there is a really great mobility drill. So I'll drill that in just a sec, but we're gonna get the other side here. Scoop the hip out, inhale, exhale, just like that, okay? That is how you're gonna stretch those deep hip rotators. And again, you can do this drill right here, okay? This will also help with hip mobility and alleviating low back tension. Just so you can see a different angle, let me switch real quick. So you won't quite be able to see this side, but now you can see the angle in the hip, okay? Notice the angle in my back. I'm trying to keep it as straight as possible while I tip from my hip and I don't round at the low back, because that will actually loosen the stretch. We want to keep the stretch tight right there, okay? that is the 90-90, or you can do the alternating dynamic 90-90 stretch. The next one we've got is the low back opener. This one will get the QLs, or the quadratus lumborum muscles. There's two ways we can do this. So you're going to bring one, actually let's do this one. You're going to bring one leg up, okay? Now, if you're not very flexible, I recommend bending the knee and taking the inside of the knee to the floor. If you are more flexible or you want a better stretch, extend the leg and take the inside of your foot to the floor, okay? So from here, I'm going to drop this leg, okay? I'm going to try to pull this forward, tighten my abs. That's going to take some pressure off my low back. You don't want to be arching your low back right here. You want your low back sucked against the floor. The best way to do that is suck in the belly. Then we take the inside of the leg to the floor. Not sure if you just heard that, but my back just popped. It was a really good feeling. So again, you could bend the knee and take the inside of the knee to the floor, or you can do the leg. Then this hand right here is going to reach over, and notice I'm hitting the wall, so I'll just bend my elbow. Exhale, and I'm going to try to rotate my head and my hand that direction. Okay? It's important that you get the breathing down here. Don't resist the stretch. Try to loosen up your whole body. Don't let it get tense. Okay? Feel a nice big stretch through this area right here. You may even feel your glute a little bit. All right? Then we're going to slowly bring it back. Okay? And then we'll do the other side. Leg up or bend the knee. Okay? Big inhale. Actually, I'm going to have to bend the knee because the wall's there. Inhale. Take the inside of this knee to the floor. Just got another pop there. Take this hand and reach back that way. Sometimes, if you're comfortable with this, because it does require a lot of flexibility, I enjoy relieving and decompressing my spine. Sometimes that means you will hear pops. If they do not hurt, then those pops are generally speaking okay. I sometimes like to force my flexibility, my torso rotational flexibility, by pushing on my hip and a little bit more actively stretching. Active just means I'm creating force to stretch my body. So I'd inhale and exhale. Pushing my hips, letting my body rotate a little bit more. But that's only for people who are used to this stretch, okay? So that is the low back opener, is what I call that. The next one we're gonna do is gonna be the lunge with stretching your quad and your psoas, or one of the primary hip flexor muscles, okay? So for this, what you want to do is, if you need a pad for your knee, you might want to get that. You're going to step into a lunge here, but you do want this to be a large lunge, okay? So you do want to start with this obtuse angle, and you'll see here why in a moment here. But what people don't realize is the hip flexors, there's more than two, but there's two large hip flexors that run up this direction. There's the psoas major and minor, which is technically, we just call that the psoas, and it's one group, but it's two muscles. And then we have the iliacus. To really stretch the psoas is what we want to do. The reason is because the iliopsoas muscle, the psoas muscle, runs through your body and attaches to the sides of the spines of your low back, the transverse processes, the little tiny things that pop out on your vertebrae. It attaches to those. So if there's a muscle running this direction through your body, and it is tight, meaning it's getting tighter and contracting, it's going to cause your low back to go inward this way. So it's going to cause, which I'll just demonstrate right here. So if I'm doing this, okay, and then I reverse and I tilt my pelvis forward, that's actually hip flexion. You see that happening right there? So what's happening is I'm actually causing compression in my low back. So the hip flexors, if you're only working the hip flexors and you're not getting the abdominals involved, then you could actually be causing low back pain by doing too much hip flexion. So we need to stretch those. So if we have that muscle that's elongated this way, we need to stretch it. So we need to actually open the hip. So we're going to step into this lunge. I'm going to send my weight forward a little bit, okay? And I want to try to make my two thigh bones parallel. That takes a lot of flexibility. So even just this right here might be a big enough stretch for you, because I can already feel my quads and my hip flexors stretching in this move. Now I'm going to slowly try to take this hip forward into the floor. So you'll notice that is probably creating almost a parallel angle in my thigh bones, okay? This is a very intense stretch, okay? I can feel this right here in my hip flexors, and it is running through my body. Now,
for those of you who are very flexible and want to stretch your quads more or get one of the other hip flexor muscles that is a quadricep muscle on this part of the leg, you're going to take that foot and you're going to bring it up slowly and try to grab your shoelaces or the top of your foot or your ankle. From here, it's already even more intensified. Inhale, exhale, and that is going to be a nice addition to this stretch, okay? So then you would just turn and do the same thing on this one. I would send my hips forward, dropping that hip. That right there, already great hip flexor stretch. If I want to intensify it, I reach back, I grab the laces of my shoes. Inhale, exhale. Awesome way to stretch, okay? So those are my suggestions for how to alleviate low back pain that is chronic, that is not an acute injury, that was most likely just caused from disuse, overuse, not stretching, not using the mobility in those joint systems, and alleviating the tension in the muscle fibers and tendons themselves. Okay, so if you haven't had a surgery or an acute injury, you probably just suffer from chronic low back pain, and these stretches done multiple times a week, just for a few minutes, will really help return the mobility to your hips and your back and start to alleviate some of that pain. So yeah, hope that was helpful, you guys. Leave some comments. Let me know what other videos you guys need, or if this was helpful or not, or if you have further questions, okay? See you in the next one.